So I want to start this episode by speaking about mother and son. I want to explain what it is, first of all, to the person watching, but also I'm trying to explain it to myself, to remind myself what it means, what it is, why it exists, etc. What are the goals? So, mother and son is a project, you could call it, that my mother and I started. The goal was to create a creative studio, essentially, to use our skills, our combined skills, and create something that enables us to finally make money off of our creativity, essentially. She's a musician, first of all, a singer, songwriter. She's also a photographer, graphic designer. So she has those skills, and I inherited some of her interests. And she was a leading, a huge factor in me becoming an artist. She introduced me to drawing, etc. when I was a kid. So she has those skills, and I'm a videographer, a filmmaker, graphic designer, illustrator. I write. I take photos. I'm a photographer, you could say. So we have those skills, and the idea was we have a lot of skills combined. We have equipment, we have drive, so we can try to monetize that. We decided, we did some photography gigs, music videos so far, some videography, and we haven't really gotten anywhere so far. We haven't been focused enough. We haven't really put our hearts and soul into the project. We've been quite distracted. We haven't structured it. But that's the goal. That's the idea. We have a few music videos, some of which we are proud of, some of which are meh. So we have started building a portfolio. The idea was to start with a music video because we agreed on this idea that this is the easiest way to start. Music videos are easier to make, to shoot than a film or a short film. And they allow us to kind of flex. Yes? Yo.
I'm going.
Cool. No, I'm joking. What?
Huh?
What?
I'm going to shop.
Okay, cool. Nice. See you later. Yes, to grow, to work, to grow as artists, etc. In a music video, for example, you can include photography, you have videography, you have graphic design included, blah, blah, blah. And the idea was to really exploit these as much as possible. So to shoot behind the scenes content, to create a whole brand a whole brand around us. Us being mother and son, And I watched, I think the last episode or the one before, and I realized I say, a lot. I need to stop saying, So yeah, the idea was to have us in the center and to try to build from that as much as possible. Mother and son. We felt like it was quite unusual, the idea of a mother and a son starting a brand together in that way. I'm sure there are brands out there that have the same dynamic, but we don't know of any. So we felt like our concept was quite unusual, and we needed to capitalize on that. The fact that it's a mother and son, and the fact that we provide all these different services. Now, there I go. Now, I'm 24 years old. I'm quite young. I'm still a beginner in many of the disciplines I practice. And we are at the beginning stages of all these different art forms professionally. So we understand that we are in the process of growing. But the goal was, as much as possible, to document the process, to create as much content as possible around what we do and how we do it, to really create a brand and showcase what we have to offer. And we have failed terribly so far. So we need to regroup and really put a plan into action. Well, draw up a plan first and then put it into action. Now we are working, the term we. One of our failures has been a lack of communication. We haven't really we haven't structured anything. We haven't been communicating. And so for a few of the latest music videos, she wasn't involved as much as she would have liked to be. And I was trying as much as possible to get the work done. And I guess I'm not really good at teamwork. But our next music video, although she hasn't been filled in yet, one, we have more time to work on it and to plan, so we'll be able to discuss more. Two, she'll be able to get to be involved more, so it will be more of a team effort. And three, since we have time, we'll be able to, as I said, kind of milk the cow more, do some behind the scenes content, to make as much work, milk as much from that project as possible to showcase what we offer and what we are as a brand. And finally, it's the most ambitious. Yes. Yes? Can you take that piece of paper behind on the other side of the door, on top of the coat hanger? And can you hang it on my door, please? On the outside. What do you want? I know. What do you want?
Do you have something sugary?
Something sugary. I always have some. There's cereals here.
Ooh. Can I take?
Yeah. Yes, you can. Fancy pants.
Like this?
Yeah.
Thank you. Could you buy Nutella when you go out as well?
Tell me now, she just went out.
She's already out.
Phone?
But no, she's taking ages, won't she?
You need Nutella now. I'm not going out.
I mean, when you go into the...
Oh, the laundry. Okay, sure, I'll take Nutella. The project itself that we are going to work on next for a music video is the most ambitious thing that I've ever done and we've ever done. And it offers a lot. The idea I have is that it's super complicated and it's going to require a lot of preparation and planning. But it's also going to provide a lot for us to showcase. It's going to be a lot of shooting, etc. So behind the scenes content, things like that. So I see it as a new start, a fresh start. I think we started the idea of Mother and Son almost around 2 years ago. Was it a year and a half or 2 years ago, something like that? Hasn't gone anywhere. We haven't made much progress, but we've built a little bit of a portfolio. Now I think we can, if we take our time on this, and as I said twice already, really milk it. Think like a content creator and really focus on this idea of showcasing what we have to offer. This is the project for that. So I've started planning the actual video, but I really need to take a step back and think about how we can milk the hell out of this project and how this could be a good start for us to really showcase what we have to offer. Wow, I'm really using the same words over and over again. Also, I don't like the word really. I should stop using it. So one of our main failures is that she and I are not good at the whole social media thing. I don't like to spend much time on it. Instagram is the big one. I don't like spending much time on it. It's really time consuming. Time and energy to make the post, etc. It requires you to be consistent. What else? And yeah, we're not really good at this whole talking to a camera about our lives thing. Now this format here is different to me. I was thinking about it earlier, this idea that I texted a friend who mentioned that he's camera shy. He's not comfortable with the idea of filming himself in public, which I'm not either. I was thinking about the idea of making a vlog for that specific reason, of walking around with a camera and talking to it, because of how intensely uncomfortable that feels. Even if I'm not holding it, the idea of talking to a camera in public horrifies me. And he mentioned, so he said, he's camera shy. He wouldn't film himself in public. And I told him, yes, that's why I do it. Which is, it is true in a way, because I am doing it now. But I'm definitely not, I haven't progressed it to become comfortable in other situations, which is something I need to do. And I've said that before. And I also thought about the idea of how this here is a speaking exercise. That's what it is. And that's why I am so unfazed now with the idea of being on camera, of putting it out there, is because how I look, and how I look is irrelevant. A lot of people, a lot of people are self-conscious about their appearance. me included. But this exercise here is about speaking. Before I do the exercise, before I turn the camera on, I have my notes that I've compiled over a week. I need to go into airplane mode. I have my notes in my phone that I've compiled over a week. That's the exercise, is speaking. That's the exercise. So I'm not thinking about what I'm going to wear, how I'm going to look. I took a shower, but I'm not thinking about taking a shower before. I don't give a shit about that. There's no makeup. I don't know, my hair was like this because I took the shower, the outfit I'm wearing. I guess the only part of the outfit is that I have to be shirtless now because I just like the idea of the continuity. Also, it's quite warm in my room, so I was shirtless before doing the episode. But once again, the exercise is about speaking. So I'm focused on speaking, and there's no consideration for my appearance or anything like that. I'm not thinking about that. And I thought about how useful that was. I'm used to it now. It's normal. It's part of the exercise, so I don't think about it. But if I was able to translate that to other areas in my life and think, what is the task here? What actually matters? And discard this self-conscious, negative talk of, oh, you look like this, you're going to come off this way. No, focus on the exercise. Once again, what I'm doing now, just focus on the exercise. The rest doesn't matter. So I thought that was quite an interesting thought. That's the worst way of summarizing it, but I need to find ways to apply it. I think I saw a video recently on successful people and how focus is a major part of success in general. How these people are able to focus on something. You think of Elon Musk, for example, and the amount of time he works and the different companies he has. He must be one of the most focused persons in the world. Whatever he's doing, he must be super focused on it. And I suppose the way he's able to do that is he understands what the task is. He doesn't let distractions come into play. I'm able to do this once again with the podcast here, with this format. I'm used to it. I'm focused. I'm not thinking about anything else right now. I'm focused on speaking, communicating my ideas, trying to formulate ideas, trying to say the best, trying to remain fluid and fluent when I speak. So this and climbing are the two places where I have been able to enter this kind of flow state. It used to be drawing when I was a kid. I would draw a lot and enter this flow state. But these are the areas when I'm able to say, right, this is now a studio. I have my key light here. I have my camera. I have my mic. I have my notes. I have me as the instrument, so to speak. I'm going to do this podcast, deliver my lines, etc. I'm able to do this, focused. I'm not thinking about going on my, scrolling from my phone, watching YouTube videos. I'm focused on this. This morning I went climbing. I get to the climbing gym. I'm not thinking about the outside world. I'm thinking about the wall, what I'm going to climb, and I'm focused on that. And there's something so liberating about that, about focus. And focus requires you to eliminate distractions. And so when I'm writing, most of the creative things I do are on my laptop. Filming a video might take a few hours, a few days, but then weeks on your laptop of editing. So I'm always on my laptop. I write on my laptop, I edit images or videos on my laptop, I do research on my laptop. And so I always have access to the internet, which is sometimes useful, but most of the time ends up being a distraction. The question is, how could I, structure my life in such a way that when I'm writing, and I don't end up getting distracted? That's a good question. But the bottom line is focus. Focus. What about this exercise gives me the ability to be focused? What about climbing gives me the ability to be focused? I suppose part of it is that there is this location change. Once again, this is my room, this is my bed. It would be easy for me to be distracted, because usually when I'm in my room, in my bed, I'm distracted. But the fact that there is this, the mic here, the camera here, the light here, the script here, my mind, my intentions, my attention is focused. So I need to find ways to replicate that. And as I said, location, even if it's the same location, changing things around to kind of signify to yourself, this is the podcast. It's not anything else. When you go to the gym, it's the gym. So you can't really do anything about that. It is what it is. But finding ways. It's funny because I'm just realizing this on the spot, how I'm able to focus here on this exercise here. And I guess there is no internet included in this. I don't browse on the internet or anything. I'm just speaking from what I have to say. So the internet is a big factor and something I need to find a way to not eliminate, to, tone down in my life. I want to name this episode Rat Eggs. We had, I don't know if it was rat or mice, but some kind of intrusion into the restaurant last week. And one of my colleagues came to me, smiling. And I don't know exactly how he delivered his lines, what he said. But he was asking, did they get rid of the rats? There was a mother rat and some kid rats. Or mice, who cares? And I think they got the mother. So he was saying, oh, they got the mother, but did they get the eggs? Right? And he's a smart guy. Right? That sounds ridiculous, but he's a pretty smart guy. But apparently he believed that rats lay eggs. Incredible, right? Incredible. So that's going to be the episode, the title for the episode. Because it sounds funny. Well, funny, intriguing, weird, interesting. 2:1 is not an aspect ratio. I've been watching the last season of True Detective, the 4th season, which is made by HBO. Now, I like HBO because they make quality series. They do. But that's a line I really like from Game of Thrones. I think episode 1. Benjen says that someone told him when he was a kid, or doesn't matter. Everything you say before the word but is essentially made irrelevant by the word but. And HBO has this policy now that the widest you can go for one of their shows is 2:1. Now, this is a problem. This is a problem for many reasons. For many reasons. One, how do I say this? Jordan Peterson gained fame on the back of his opposition of a bill in Canada for compelled speech. His point was that the government isn't allowed to make us say things. It can't be illegal to not say something. They can't force us to say something. That's what I recall. Haven't done extensive research, but I believe that's what he was saying. Right? You can suggest things, you can say some things are worse than others, and some things can be punished. Inciting violence, I think, some of those things. But you can't say you have to say this, because that's an infringement on our rights, on human rights. And, I agree, and I'm glad that he rose to prominence and that he was able to entertain us with great interviews and great ideas. And what HBO is doing, to me, feels reminiscent of that. Now, I think it was Canada. What Canada was trying to make people say was the pronouns now. I don't know them. There's lots of them. But these are new, right? These are new. Are they? How could I say this? Do they have true value? Are there more than one gender? For millennia, we've only had 2 genders. Biology says that there's only 2 genders. Now there's this new thing. How do we approach this? I don't know. It's complicated. I mean, I have an opinion on it, but that's not the point here. Now there's this aspect ratio called 2:1. It is the worst aspect ratio. It is deplorable. It is disgusting. I hate it. I hate it with all my heart. Why do I hate it? I suppose I need to talk about that. I hate it because it's not an aspect ratio. There are aspect ratios. They are super important. I am obsessed with aspect ratios. Usually if you go 4:3, which is the aspect ratio I'm using now, in my opinion, and you can always say the opposite of what I'm going to say, which sounds stupid, but all rules are meant to be broken, right? There's always exceptions. 4:3 to me is a good aspect ratio for... No. 4:3 to me is a good aspect ratio for intimacy. Intimacy. You put the emphasis in, right? Intimacy. Who cares? It's a good aspect ratio for intimacy, right? In these podcasts, it's only me in a room talking. Focus on the thing in the frame. There's no need for any more room on the sides for whatever's happening here, right? 4:3 is the most used narrow aspect ratio. Robert Eggers shot The Lighthouse in 1.19:1, which exaggerated the sense of claustrophobia. Oh my god, claustrophobia. Claustrophobia. That word is difficult to pronounce, man. Claustrophobia for me. To enhance the claustrophobia in his film, right? But that's an aspect ratio that doesn't get used ever, really. That's the only film I can think of in modern times that uses that aspect ratio. When you want to go narrow, if you want to do a quirky A24 art house movie, blah blah blah, 4:3 is narrow. 4:3 is intimate. When you put a face on a 4:3 frame, the face takes most of the frame. It's good for that. The wide aspect ratio, which I used a few weeks ago, CinemaScope, 2.4:1, 2.39:1, 2.35:1, doesn't really matter. It's more dynamic. It's good for wide landscapes. It's good for dynamic images. It's good when you have an ensemble cast. It's good for a group, you know. It's more epic. Now, that doesn't mean you can't make an intimate film on a wide aspect ratio, and vice versa. Doesn't mean that you can't make an epic film on 4:3, even though that never happens. I watched Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, a few months ago. I mentioned that. And it's in 1.43:1, which is almost 1.33. That's the IMAX aspect ratio, full frame. And the reason I watched that film mostly was that. Seeing an epic, huge blockbuster film on this aspect ratio. And it looked great, it looked amazing, because once again, it's not about the tools, it's about what you do with the tools. So if you want to go narrow, you go 4:3. If you want to go epic, energetic, dynamic, classic blockbuster, you go CinemaScope. And then in between, you have 1.66 and 1.85. Now 1.85 to me is like the standard, the lukewarm water, the standard. It has less character. It's not bad in any way. One of my favorite films, The Master. So, for example, CinemaScope, Drive, my favorite film of all time, is shot in CinemaScope. It's the blocking, the cinematography is beautiful, it's great. Then, what do you have in 1.33? I'm drawing blanks right now. I mean, all of Ozu's work, 1.33 or 1.37, same thing. Yasujiro Ozu shot all his films in 4:3. In the Academy ratio, the one I'm using now, almost square, right? And his films are chilled, relaxed. Nothing happens pretty much. You know, it's not the type of films for a mainstream audience. It's quite boring for most people, but I love them, right? So the opposite. Very chill. And then in the middle, you have The Master, for example. That's shot in 1.85. One of my top 5 favorite films of all time. It's magnificent. Visually stunning. And because you have such a masterful filmmaker in Paul Thomas Anderson, he uses the aspect ratio perfectly. It doesn't look like it would work better in wide aspect ratio or vice versa in a narrow aspect ratio. And the aspect ratio is unnoticeable. That's what 1.85 gives you. It's quite unnoticeable. It will usually be used for TV, for series, for example. True Detective Season 1, the best season of all time of any show ever, is shot in 1.85. It's an aspect ratio that doesn't bring attention to itself. And then you have 1.66, which is closer to what I'm using now. It's a bit taller, and that's what they use on The Witch, for example, to enhance the sense of claustrophobia, right? So all these aspect ratios, they have history. If I tell you CinemaScope, you think of almost every movie you've ever seen. especially in the cinema. If I tell you 4:3, probably movies you avoid because they seem a bit too artsy, or probably movies that you watch and you think, I'm an artsy guy, I'm watching a 4:3 movie. 4:3 is in the aspect ratio, right? 1.85, you probably don't think about it, but that's what you see on TV mostly, most series, etc. 1.85. Now, 2:1 exists between 4.3, what I'm using now, and 2.4, the CinemaScope, the classic blockbuster, right? It exists in between. And the argument people are making, and I know it's an old aspect ratio, it's existed for decades, but recently it's made it a resurgence. What people are arguing, David Fincher was the first to use it in a popular TV show for the first Netflix show, House of Cards. I love David Fincher, but he's full of shit. He is so full of shit. In so many ways. You know, the best looking film he's ever made is probably Fight Club or Seven, shot on film. But now he's saying film, it's too complicated, blah, 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 blah. It looks better, okay, period. Then anamorphic. He doesn't shoot anamorphic anymore, but he puts the fake flares in there and the fake barrel distortion. It just looks fake. It looks stupid, okay? His latest film, The Killer, shot on a red, because he only shoots on a red now. Looks like shit. The highlights are blown out. It looks disgusting. It's so sharp. It's ugly, okay? So David Fincher is full of shit. He's the number one full of shit. He's the antithesis of Quentin Tarantino, right? Who shoots on real anamorphic lenses, on film, real film, and he gets the real barrel distortion and the real flares, and he's actually going through the process and the experience of shooting on film. And they look magnificent, even though he's not as technical and he doesn't have as much of a visual style as David Fincher, right? David Fincher is full of shit. And so he's arguing 2:1 is a good aspect ratio. It's the universal, that was the idea, monoscope or something they call it. It's perfect, right? It's right in between the standard no character aspect ratio of 1.85 and the wide, old Western movies, epic 2.4:1. It's in between. It's perfect. It gives you the width, right? You can do something epic and wide, and it gives you the height. No, it fucking doesn't. No, it doesn't. I gave an example to someone recently. I don't remember what was the example, but it just doesn't. It looks like you either have a 1.85 frame that you cropped at the top and the bottom and something is missing, or it looks like you have a wide frame that you cut on sides and something is missing. One of the latest Jurassic Park movies was shot on that. It looks stupid. It looks ridiculous. You know why? Because we have been used to watching films in CinemaScope or in 1.85 our whole lives. And so when we see that stupid-ass frame, we think something is wrong. We feel it. And most people don't because they don't understand aspect ratios and they don't understand film in that way, as intricately. But we feel it. It feels stupid. It feels wrong. It's ugly. The thing with these aspect ratios is that they're quite weird, right? 1.3:1. That sounds strange. 2.4:1. That's super wide. You don't usually see images in that aspect ratio in real life. That's in movies. But that's the thing. There's a culture, there's a history. These aspect ratios, we are so used to seeing films in these aspect ratios that there's something, there's a continuity between this. 2:1 doesn't exist. It doesn't have a culture. It doesn't have a history. It feels stupid. It looks weird. I hate it. It feels wrong. 2:1 and 1:1 are these non-aspect ratios that I hate thoroughly. Mummy by Xavier Dolan was quite successful back, a few years, a decade ago or something. And the aspect ratio changes throughout because he's an edgy young director. And at some point, it stays in 1:1. It's the same with 1:1. It doesn't work. It does not work. It looks stupid. It looks ridiculous. And it's strange how it feels because 1:1 doesn't feel like 1:1. 1:1 feels like a vertical image. It feels, when you watch it, it feels vertical because it's so tight. It is 1:1. It is a square technically, but it feels like a tall rectangle. 1.33:1, the Academy ratio, which I'm using now, it feels like a square, doesn't it? It feels like a square. You're not really thinking, oh, it's, a little bit wider than a square. It feels squarish, but it's not. 1.1 is not an aspect ratio. It can't be used. It's stupid. It's ridiculous. Instagram did this thing that HBO is doing, and they said the images should be in 1:1 because it's uniform, right? Because then it gives it's homogeneity. That's what they were trying to do. It doesn't work. Art, you can't do that to art. You can't say, okay, people, do what you want, but here's this one constraint that we've decided to put for some stupid ass reason. Now, sure, constraints in art, breed creativity. Yes. But that's wrong. That's just wrong. I hate it. So 1:1 and 2:1 are not aspect ratios. They're disgusting. They're ridiculous. I hate them. So I've been watching the latest season of True Detective. First shot, I think, well, what the hell? Something feels wrong. Then I check and it's shot in 2:1. And then I realized, I think I've thought about this recently. 2:1, HBO. Then I go to House of the Dragon, the latest Game of Thrones spin-off. Sure enough, it's shot in 2:1. And it felt wrong. It felt wrong. Now, it felt wrong partly because it looks so artificial and fake because of the technology in comparison to the previous seasons and how polished and beautiful it is and clean, and the depth of field and everything. It feels too clean and modern. That was one thing. But the 2:1 aspect ratio, right? I didn't remember it. I just remembered that I felt like something was wrong. So that's just unacceptable. That's horrible what they're doing, HBO. Well, the fact that they are enforcing it, that it's not, you can't go wider, it's not optional. I hate that. Now, I do think that a series in a wide aspect ratio, for me, there's something about it that feels wrong, that I don't really like in CinemaScope. It does feel a bit wrong in a weird way. Maybe it's because, just like a vertical aspect ratio doesn't work for a longer duration than 1 minute or something, at some point it starts feeling off. If you watch a short film that is shot vertically, it's going to feel weird at some point. You can't really watch for too long. I feel like the same thing can be said for a series. You think of 45 minutes episodes that is in a wide aspect ratio. There's something about it that feels strange and wrong to me. So I do understand. I do feel like as an artist, I wouldn't shoot a series on this wide aspect ratio. Once again, that's not the problem. The problem is that they're saying you're not allowed to. And that artists are actually making stuff in 2:1. Why? Why? Where was I going with this? I lost my train of thought. I mean, there's so many things I could say about this. I have notes. 2:1 was in my notes, but I didn't think I was going to spend so much time on it. But in True Detective, I'm pretty sure they use fake halation in there. And I had a discussion with a professional colorist that goes to the climbing gym I go to. He's really nice. We talked a lot about halation. And he argues that you can, quote unquote, fake halation digitally. And I don't agree. Now, he's a professional. He's a lot older than me and more experienced. So I looked at the examples he had. And obviously, when you look at the pinnacle of what one can do in emulating film, you look at Steve Yedlin, who's adamant that you can fake film and you can make it indistinguishable. You can make it indistinguishable from actual film. And I looked at his tests. And sure, they are super close. Super close. The halation, he's able to do what most plugins and just regular people are not able to do. They can get the halation where in a window, when it's blown out, you can get the borders because that's easy to detect. But when you have a lamp or more like a torch, what the fuck do you call them? What the hell do you call them? There's when you go in the night, blah, 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 you have your torch and you point it at the camera. When you have a strong and small light source pointed at the camera, the halation will be softer and more dispersed. And that's one thing that's not replicated in fake halation. Now he's able to kind of replicate that, but I looked at the tests and I'm super confident that I was able to identify what was actually film and what wasn't, because there are discrepancies. It's not perfect. And the thing about David Fincher and his argument that by replicating properties of anamorphic of film, the audience will feel something. To me, that's the problem. The problem is that you can shoot on film, especially when you can afford it. You can shoot on film. and you're going to get film. And it's going to be perfect. Faking it, as many millions of dollars as you want to put into this venture of faking the film look, it's never going to be film. Film is unpredictable. That's part of the beauty of it. And film has its own characteristics. Film is alive. Film is alive, right? That's what's beautiful about it. It's an actual... Nolan has this speech on the idea that as a filmmaker, you are an alchemist. You're working with chemicals and this product that is alive and unpredictable. You don't get that, the idea of shooting on this perfect machine that is a digital camera, and then you put it into a program, and then you tweak it and do all these things to make it look like it's not digital. It's so ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's fake. So what's the point? So I hate this whole idea of faking the film look, even though I spend a lot of time trying to do that. I think it's ridiculous. Even if one day we're able to completely replicate film on digital really seamlessly, I think it's stupid. I think part of me, I'm a bit of a purist when it comes to that. I know Dune they shot on digital, then they filmed the digital image with film, and then they got that grain and everything. I don't like that. To me, the whole concept of faking it devalues the work, in my opinion. Do what Roger Deakins does. Shoot on digital. Don't put any softening filters. Don't do any weird fake halation, fake grain, etc. Don't do any of that shit. Embrace the digital and be the best filmmaker in the world in Roger Deakins or in Emmanuel Lubezki. Just embrace what you got. Faking it is just ugly. I just want to reiterate, 2x1 is a travesty. It's an insult. I hate it. Facing problems head on. Another idea that was reinforced at work. I guess I was going to say, I don't remember when, but since it's in my notes, must mean that it was this past week. I made a mistake on table 21 last week during lunch. I made a mistake and I decided to just, I know it sounds stupid and obvious, but I just went there with a different energy than I ever have done before. And I think that going climbing more regularly, working out more regularly has really intensified my energy. It's given me a lot of energy. I feel much better. Especially when I work out before coming to work. I arrive at work and I feel blessed. I'm so happy. I'm so full of energy. It's crazy. Usually when I arrive at work, I think, oh, there I am. I arrived at work. Let's just get through the day. But when I work out before I arrive and I think, life's good. I'm happy. I'm full of energy. Working out is really good for you. And so I went to the table and I did the whole hospitality thing that I've seen my managers do countless times. Just went there and I said, I just did the whole thing. Oh, I'm so sorry if this impacted, blah, blah, blah. I just talked to them. Was really open about the idea that I made a mistake and I apologize, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to check, what can I do? I did the whole thing. Now, traditionally, I'm supposed to talk to my manager and he goes there. He's the iron. He irons things out. He goes there. That's his job. He's been doing this for years. He knows how to do it. And traditionally, I think to myself, well, that's the chain of command. That's the protocol in that situation. So I'm supposed to go tell him and then he'll iron things out. But I decided, fuck that. I made a mistake. And it's not like I never own up to my mistakes. But if I do, I still let my manager go afterwards and really iron things out. That he's the iron. I can, go to the table and say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, blah, 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 which I always do. But then I leave and then he goes in and he just finishes them, right? That's what he does. This time I decided I'm going to go there and apologize. And then I'm going to be the iron. I'm going to say, I'm going to do the whole charismatic, oh, I'm so sorry, what can we do? Blah, 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 give the energy. Something I've done last week that I never used to do. Just in general, when interacting with guests, is really give energy. Yesterday, we had a table, and once again, my manager was talking to them, and he was giving so much energy. I just realized he was being loud. He was enacting things. He's so good at it. and he was especially loud this time. He's quite loud usually. He has this powerful energy, but he was really going all out. And it made me appreciate more the idea that, once again, motivation shouldn't be what motivates you in a weird way. Action first, and then motivation comes, right? And to me, I would at times be more animated, but I always kept in my mind the idea that there are other people watching. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I don't want to do... He doesn't think that way. He comes in and he sets the tempo. He sets the energy. And if he wants to bring it up, he's going to bring it up. You know, he's in control. And this really, I realized this last week when I decided to become more animated, more energetic, to say, I'm in control of the experience here. If I want to make a joke and laugh at it and kind of bring you into this energy, I'm going to do it. And so I went to this table, 21, and I apologized, and I forced myself to give this energy. And then the motivation came to keep that going, right? I go to a table usually. Today I was climbing, and I wanted to climb something, and there was a lady who was working on that wall on another climb. So I waited a bit. I just climbed it. Then I looked at her. She was still waiting. I thought, was I being an asshole? I don't know. And I just asked her, what are you climbing? And she said, I'm climbing this. And then I left, right? There was no motivation for me to keep going. There was no motivation. I didn't feel like it. What I should have done, and what I did last week, is to say, fuck it. I don't need the motivation. Let's get something there. Let's do something. Let's share some energy. Maybe you have a conversation, blah, blah, blah. That's what I should have done. I should have said, I should have found something. Even if it doesn't come naturally. Even if I look awkward and it feels weird, and if I make her uncomfortable at first, do something. Force yourself, act, keep acting, stumble, struggle, look stupid, and then eventually the motivation comes. That's what I learned last week. Even here, before recording this, I was not in the mood to record a podcast. I didn't want to speak. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't feel like it. I have lots of things to do today. I did not feel like it. And then I start speaking. I start delivering my lines. And then I talk about the 2:1 aspect ratio. And I'm just off to the races. Because that fucking aspect ratio needs to die. I want to kill it. I suppose that's another pointer, right? Talk about something that you're passionate about. That's always something that is mentioned. I think when I read that Carnegie Hall book, How to Influence People and Make Friends or something, which sounds like a sad book to read, but anyways. I think that's something that's always mentioned. Talk about something that you're passionate about, because it's easier, it's effortless, it's natural. And so I did. I pushed through the barrier of no motivation, and then it happened. Another point connected to that. I watched a snippet of a podcast with David Goggins and Huberman, Dr. Huberman. Does he have a first name? Is his first name Dr. Huberman? Maybe. And they talk about this idea that what Mr. Goggins embodies and what Dr. Huberman has learned in a scientific way, let's say, or an article he read or a paper, is this idea that when we do things that we don't want to do, doing this, don't remember exactly, maybe there's a specific part of your brain, doesn't matter. The science doesn't even matter that much. It's more about the philosophy of it. When you do something you don't want to do, something in you grows, right? Well, say that, because I don't remember exactly. Something in you grows, like a muscle. It grows. It becomes stronger. Every time you do something you don't want to do, it grows stronger. And when you do the opposite, when you get stuck in a pattern, where you do things that are detrimental, when you get too comfortable, it shrinks, right? So you can easily see how that applies to David Goggins, who preaches this idea of brutalizing yourself. That's his public persona. That's what he embodies. Forcing yourself to do things that you don't want to do. And then at the end, Dr. Huberman links that, once again, I don't remember exactly how, but he links that to the will to live. The idea that, I suppose it is a muscle or a part of the brain, that people who live longer, this part of the brain, or if it's not the brain because I don't remember, this part of themselves, it is larger. This muscle, we could say, this muscle is bigger, right? This muscle is bigger. So he links the ability to do things you don't want to do to the will to live. The idea that when you're doing this, the muscle you're working on is your will to live. And I thought that was, beautiful. Now, how true is it? Is it going to get debunked? Who cares? The thing is, you feel that. Once again, I did not want to record this bloody podcast right now. I did not. I was procrastinating. I didn't feel like it. And now, I feel so good. First of all, however I felt before, where I am now, it's almost done, right? So I can feel some gratification in the fact that it's almost completed, and it will be completed quite easily. There's that. What else is there? It reinforces in me the idea that I have a will. If I will something I mentioned before, if I will something into existence, it's going to exist. Now that's the lowest of the low in terms of how easy this is to accomplish. But the principle is what's important. If I want to do something and I start acting towards that goal, it's going to happen. And that feels really good. And regardless of what the science says, you know and I know that when you are being complacent, when you're not doing the things you're supposed to do, it eats at you. It does. And when, on the other hand, you do things you don't want to do, no matter how big, it feels good. You're nourishing yourself. It feels like you're growing. I can 100% remember, if I think of the most significant moments of my life and the moments that I can remember most vividly. One such example was when I did something I didn't want to do, climbing with a rope down a bridge. I'm afraid of heights. I'm paranoid, blah, blah, blah. I did not want to do it. I did not. It was during this NCS, not NCIS, NCS thing. When I finished school, it was pretty much a free holiday. And we did team building exercises, stuff like that. And we had this thing. We went on a little hike, and there was a bridge. We had helmets, this harness, and this rope. And the rope is attached at somewhere on the bridge. And then we climbed down the bridge, and then at some point, there's no more bridge, right? You're just going down with the rope. To me, that made no sense. What do I get out of that? I'm taking a risk for nothing. What if the rope breaks? What if this? What if that? I'm there for an hour, sitting on the side, watching all my friends, which, I'll say it, okay? How do I say this without it sounding disgusting? I can't. Look. I guess I don't need to say it, so I won't. But I thought, these people are not inherently better than me. Why am I frozen in fear and these people are doing it? Why? It doesn't make sense. Are they somehow better than me? Why? It doesn't make sense. These are just regular people. They're doing it, I'm not doing it. And then some 5-year-old kids arrived. Helmets, harnesses, and they all did it. So obviously my ego kicked in. I think, I can't be, 16-year-old young man being pathetic, being scared when all my friends, my fellow 16-year-olds who are just regular 16-year-olds are doing it, and then these 5-year-olds are doing it. I have to do it. I did not want to do it. I told them I'm not doing it. I don't care, I'm not doing it. And I suppose there was a part of me that believed that I would. I didn't take the helmet off and the harness. I kept it on for some reason. But I told them, and I told myself, I'm not doing it. Why? I don't care. It doesn't make sense. And I told them, they said, oh, look, the 5-year-olds are doing it. I said, man, I don't care. You're not going to get me by, poking at my ego. I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. Eventually, I got there on the ledge of the bridge, whatever you call it. I climbed over it super slowly, like a sloth, super slowly. Here I was on the other side of safety with a rope, and everyone just looking at me. And I think, okay, I did this. This doesn't feel, that unsafe. I'm on the other side. There's a rope. I can climb over. Now it's gonna get hard because I have to climb down. Still, there's the bridge, right? The structure. So I start climb. Well, I don't start climbing down. I stay there for a good few minutes, thinking, why I don't do this. Blah, blah. I start climbing very slowly, holding the rope, feeling that it's strong. I have to reassure myself after a dozen kids have done it 3 times. I have to reassure myself that the rope is not going to break. Okay, it feels safe. Logically, it feels safe, but now there's this part in my brain that's not logical. That says, there's 10 meters, 15 meters underneath me. Why am I doing this? It doesn't make any sense. I don't have to. Why should I do it? I start, climbing down super slowly. I'm climbing down with my feet against the wall. I'm slowly going down. Alright, I haven't fallen yet. Feels alright. I don't feel good in any way as of yet. Then boom, there's no more structure now. There's just a rope. I start swinging a little bit because there's no structure. It's scary. I keep it together. I keep going down slowly. Then I get to the bottom. And when I get to the bottom, I've done something I did not want to do. Something that was terrifying. I did it. I look up at the bridge and I just run up the stairs and back to the bridge to do it again. And this was probably a trivial day for most people there. Wasn't that important. But it was a super important day for me. Because I did something I did not want to do. And I remember that day, and I remember how I felt after doing this. A meal for my soul is what that was. A 3 Michelin star meal for my soul. It felt super good. So, the moments I remember the most of my life are these moments. Which points to the fact that there are so few. A few of these moments happened at the restaurant where I'm working now. And it's a big reason why I cherish that place, even though in many ways I dislike it. I cherish it because I have quite a few moments that happened there where I did that. And once again, throughout my whole life, I haven't done it enough. I haven't done it a lot. I did it a lot in that place. So it's quite significant for me. And I'm truly grateful for some of the people there and for just the experience as a whole. So once again, doesn't matter what the science says, we all know it to be true. That when you do things you don't want to do, the gratification you get out of that is immense. In other news, what else do I have to speak about? I don't really want to speak anymore, to be honest. I think I've spoken enough. Alright. Enjoy the present, and thank you.